Yeah, absolutely. So it starts off almost feeling like a monster of the week type of story, almost Witcher-esque. They are basically roaming mercenaries for hire who are protecting various villages and territories from these demons who seem to be cropping up more and more frequently. They're supposed to be kind of beaten or extinct, but they're starting to come back, and we don't know why. There is this cult that worships the demons as deities, and they think that that's connected to the demons' return. So they are trying to basically track down this cult and infiltrate them and find out why or how the demons are managing to return. While this is happening, they are actually being hunted by an extremely powerful demon known in Japanese lore as a daitengu. So it's based off, real Japanese mythology. And he has a blood vendetta against their family. So he's hunting them while they're trying to hunt down this cult. And there are three kings who are all kind of ready to go to war with each other. They're all kind of squabbling over control of the continent. And each one of these kings wants to use these two twins who are from a very powerful bloodline. They want to use these twins for their own political machinations. So the twins are kind of caught up between these three very powerful figures while going on this hunt.
Welcome back to the podcast. It's Living the Next Chapter, a place where you get to meet great authors from around the world. And today, looking really forward to having Cal on the show today. We're going to talk about his book, his journey. He's been on many different shows. So after you're done here, you can just go on YouTube, type in his name. You're going to see him everywhere. And it's great to have him on the show. I'm really excited about this. We're going to be talking about his books and his journey and all the great stuff. Cal, welcome to the show. Glad to have him on Living This Chapter.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Good. Where are you, Cal? Where do you live?
Right now, I am in the Chicago suburbs. I just moved out of the city last summer.
Excellent. Born and raised in that area?
Yeah. Yep. Northwest suburbs, born in a place called Hoffman Estates, and then now I live in Des Plaines, which is just a little closer to the city.
Nice. Excellent. Good. Your journey as an author, Cal, where does this all begin for you? Somebody come into your life and go, you should be an author? You discover it yourself? How did you get here?
I think it was something that was always innate. I started writing for fun even when I was a very little kid, and I always really enjoyed even the mandatory projects we had to do in school. I always went above and beyond on those, so I always enjoyed it. And the first book I ever wrote, I actually wrote when I was 17. That's kind of my my dumpster manuscript. I got it out of the way early.
A dumpster manuscript. I've heard that described in other terms, but I think I like your term the best. That's kind of interesting. You write it and you're just like, okay, I got that out of the way. Now I can go on to something else.
Yeah. At the time, I thought I was going to get it published, and I queried it and got no responses because it was really bad. And then looking back on it, years later, when I started to take writing more seriously, I was like, oh, okay, and I kind of learned the term. Some people call it the drawer manuscript, like you put it in a drawer and lock it away. I was like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, that was just a bad book that I wrote, and I'm never gonna look at it again.
Looking back at it, though, what was it about the story that didn't work? Like, because I have authors listening, and they're like, oh, please ask this, because I might be writing that story right now. What part of it stood out to you that was like, no, I see why this didn't go any further?
Aside from the cheeky answer of everything, it was way too long for the genre. It was It was not fantasy. It was like a kind of like a modern, like, angsty teen drama, because I wrote it when I was an angsty teen. It was 200,000 words, so it was long for an epic fantasy. But it was just kind of self-indulgent teenage musings, and the writing itself was I was just violating a lot of very simple writing rules, everything from regarding like sentence structure and adjective use to an abuse of dialogue tags, just really simple rookie mistakes, and I was making all of them.
Had you been writing anything else before that? Like how did writing just appear for you, though?
So I always did it for fun, but I didn't start actually seeking an education in it and taking it seriously until my mid-20s. Okay. So I was kind of just winging it for a very long time, and I think that helped me develop a feel for it in a certain way. But it was still very, very raw. You still have to learn the rules of the game, even if you find yourself drawn to it or find yourself lucky enough to have some base talent. Like I could conjure the occasional good sentence, but then it'd be surrounded by terrible lines that a more seasoned writer just would not write.
Did you have somebody in your world that kind of worked with you when you wrote that first book, or were you completely on your own?
No, it's completely on my own. And that's also the problem, is that, no good book gets created solely on its own. There's always people in your corner who support you, beta readers, editors, cover designers, all those people who have their their fingerprints on your book, even though it might only be your name on the title. And I didn't have that at the time.
So if you hadn't have written that book, do you think you would be here today?
I want to say I would still be writing, but I don't think I would have. I might not have a book that I'm really proud of under my belt this soon into my writing journey.
Okay, yeah, because I think, like, I talk to podcasters, and I tell them you can't get to podcast number 10, episode 10, without episode 1. You got to start somewhere. And by doing it, you're going to grow because now you're in that mode, and you're only going to improve the more you do this. I had a guest on a while back, and he said, a quote based on an author, Ray Bradbury, said something along the lines of, write 52 short stories a year, one a week.
I know this one.
And over 52 weeks, the chances of you writing 52 terrible short stories is pretty well rare. Yeah. Something's going to be good. Something's going to stand out. But just the journey of continuing to show up and keep writing is going to exercise the skills. You're going to improve. So the odds are in your favor. You're going to write at least one good story out of 52, right?
Yeah, and it does. Improvement requires making mistakes and learning from that. Nobody gets it right, on their first try, and I think it's a common misconception in the industry and kind of in our culture at large, because we're so obsessed with and envious of success. Like, we like to see the overnight success stories, but we don't realize that person might have gone viral overnight, but they were probably working really, really hard for 5, 10, 15 years before that. We just don't see that part.
Let's talk about your book. Tell me the story. Like, where did the idea come from for ShadowBane? Like, I'm always curious of the origin, where the idea came from for you to start this book.
So ShadowBane originated from a nightmare. I'm prone to bouts of sleep paralysis. If anyone knows what that is, it's basically you're having a very scary, intense dream, and you partially wake up, but part of your brain is still asleep. So you're actually paralyzed. Because you're paralyzed when you're dreaming during REM sleep, but you're slightly conscious, and it's really scary because you're trying to move, but you can't. And this is often accompanied by seeing like dark, like figures or shadows, which is just kind of your brain coming online and filling in the gaps with what you can't consciously process. And this is common enough for me to where I'm used to it, but it's still very scary when it happens in the moment. So I had an episode, and I was having a very intense nightmare that was basically revolving around like demons attacking me and my wife in our home. Really, really scary stuff. I was terrified when I woke up. Calm myself down. I start to go back to sleep, and my dog starts howling and barking. And he's generally, pretty mellow, especially at night. So I got up and I searched the apartment, and it was, I thought maybe someone was like trying to break in or something. Totally clear. We're fine. I go back to bed, and my dog does something that he's never done before or since. He sits lengthwise or like widthwise across me like this with his paws on my chest and just starts staring through the door. Like, he was on edge. He stayed like that for about an hour, and he's never done that before. So that got the wheels thinking. The whole can dogs or animals sense supernatural spirits, that sort of thing, was kind of the first inkling of this story. That turned into a guy and his dog hunting demons, and then that turned into two twins and their 800-pound Siberian tiger hunting demons in feudal Japan. And that was the initial concept. So
when I'm looking at your website, I'm seeing some dark shapes, and I feel like I'm seeing what you're explaining to me just by looking at your website.
The cover art?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's exactly what the story is. It's I think there's a little more depth beyond the raw action, but I did want to use the cover art to set the tone and give readers a good idea of what to expect.
All right. So you're saying this happens for you frequently, that you're awoken like this and these dreams happen continually?
A couple times.
Okay.
A couple times a year.
Really?
So, yeah. So it's not frequent. It's not like a weekly thing, but it's common enough, and it's been happening since I was a teenager. So it's enough to where I'm used to it.
Wow. The reaction of your dog was the one thing that I'm really trying to process right now. Right.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time putting that together in my head.
It freaked me out a little bit too, especially. And then when I told my wife about it, she was very freaked out about it. But, I'm still here, and I got a good book out of it. So
it's a very interesting way to get a book out of there. But, okay. Does she understand what you're seeing and dealing with in those moments when these dreams come your way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because that would be hard to explain to somebody who has never had them, never experienced them. That sounds like something that just feels out of this world, and I guess in a sense.
Yeah, it's I mean, it really freaked me out the first time it happened to me, but then I went and read about it, and then I was like, okay, this is not. I'm not a party of one. This has happened to multiple people. It's a psychological phenomenon. And I tend to be a pretty intense dreamer, so it's no surprise that like I have a lot of good dreams too, but my nightmares are pretty intense, and
Yeah.
and so this is just part of like essentially a sudden awakening from a very intense nightmare. And
Okay.
so there's just that like delay of your body and brain kind of coming back online.
I'm interested on how you thought, well, I'm going to take this experience and turn it into a book. Like, was that something that came naturally to you, that this is what I want to do with this experience, or did that take time to kind of process that a book would be the result?
I let it roll around in my head for a couple days, just because I remember, if anything ever kind of freaks me out, or if I have a question in my head, I just Google it online. So I'm not I don't believe in like the supernatural or the spiritual very much. I'm a pretty like science-minded person, but I did go Google, can animals sense, spirits, just to get a feel for what the lore is out there. And, the more I read about it, the more I thought this could be it was an interesting question, and my brain just kind of hung up on it. And I was like, this would be a cool concept for a fantasy book.
Nice.
And that's where it took me.
Are you a fantasy reader yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who are some of the authors that you feel drawn to?
So my favorite author right now is Joe Abercrombie. He's kind of coined as like Lord Grimdark. He helped pioneer the genre back in the early 2010s. I'm also a big fan of Luke Skull, and who is also in the same genre. Pierce Brown, who's a sci-fi author. He writes the Red Rising series. And I grew up on, like when I was a kid, I got really into the Redwall series and Aragon. So there's more like children's fantasy. And then I switched to a kind of Dungeons and Dragons based fantasy called, the series is called The Legend of Drizzt, and it's written by R.A. Salvatore. And that was like a 20-book series that I got into as a teenager. So
Wow.
My taste has changed over the years a little bit as I've gotten older. But I've been reading it since I was, probably 9 years old.
So for your audience, for your book, do you have somebody in mind as kind of your ideal reader, age range, the type of person that would be interested in this book?
So probably it's definitely it's for adults. It's not like a YA book or anything. So I'd say like at the absolute youngest, it's like 17, 18. And people who people who like anime, I've been told that the book feels like an anime, but just written not in novel form. People who like very like dark, violent, character-driven stories. It's very action-packed, but there's a lot of it. All the conflict is precipitated by deep character moments. I wanted to kind of marry those two things and have a very action-driven story with a lot of depth behind it. So people who like animes such as like Berserk or Demon Slayer, in a setting that's closer to James Clavell's Shogun, people enjoyed the book or the FX show. That's kind of what the setting is like, and so it's kind of a mix of all those elements.
Okay, all right. What about just some of the aspects of the story that readers are going to fall in love with? Do you have kind of just some guidance, some idea about where we're going to go in the story? I just want to get people to connect with you as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts off almost feeling like a monster of the week type of story, almost Witcher-esque. They are basically roaming mercenaries for hire who are protecting various villages and territories from these demons who seem to be cropping up more and more frequently. They're supposed to be kind of beaten or extinct, but they're starting to come back, and we don't know why. There is this cult that worships the demons as deities, and they think that that's connected to the demons' return. So they are trying to basically track down this cult and infiltrate them and find out why or how the demons are managing to return. While this is happening, they are actually being hunted by an extremely powerful demon known in Japanese lore as Daitengu. So it's based off, real Japanese mythology. And he has a blood vendetta against their family. So he's hunting them while they're trying to hunt down this cult. And there are three kings who are all kind of ready to go to war with each other. They're all kind of squabbling over control of the continent. And each one of these kings wants to use these two twins who are from a very powerful bloodline. They want to use these twins for their own political machinations. So the twins are kind of caught up between these three very powerful figures while going on this hunt.
Okay. All right. What kind of research do you do for this? Like, because you talk about there's like Japanese stuff there. You got all this kind of stuff you're pulling in from. Like you have the story in your mind, what you're visiting, but how do you fill in all the pieces?
A mountain of research. So I would say the setting is feudal Japan, right? So the two big things I really like to research were the mythology. That's kind of the backbone of the world building, and then the culture. Because I did not just want to make a bunch of assumptions and then have things that were distinctly not authentic to that time period and that culture. So I tried to weave those elements in. So there was a website called yokai.com. Any sort of Japanese like deity, demon, spirit, entity are known collectively as yokai. And I cleaned out that website. I read like everything on there. And there's, a couple hundred, probably several hundred entries by now at this point. But I wanted to get a good base of inspiration for what kind of creatures do I want to include in the story. And then a lot of questions I had to research while I was writing it. They go into a village. I'm like, okay, what were Japanese feudal villages like? What were the buildings made out of? What sort of occupations and professions were there? And you find out lots of really neat little tidbits. For example, someone like a tanner or a butcher would have to live outside the village, and they were considered extremely low class because it was considered like a dirty, like filthy job associated with death. And there's a big taboo against that in Japanese feudal culture. And so they were actually looked down upon as like an outside caste. And so that's something that, had I just been like, oh, they walked past a butcher's shop, that would have been inauthentic.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. I love history. I love learning about why things are the way they are. I do know that Japanese people, they're very into cleanliness and, everything is just so pristine, and that's really something they value. So that makes sense.
And so it's the extension of that culture. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because you're not writing it from firsthand experience. You're not from Japan. So you have to kind of immerse yourself there to understand that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of research involved at every step of creation of for this book.
What was hard for you in writing this book?
That element, particularly the language, because I wanted to include, I didn't want to just name things Asian sounding gibberish. I wanted to actually have it meaning. And so every term in the story is actually real Japanese, even like a made up term. So for example, like we might say, like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, right? It's that's a clear term, and that explains why they're called that, and so on. So these two twins are descended from this powerful bloodline. Basically, they're descended from a god who centuries ago was hunting demons himself before he was killed, and so their bloodline is known as the Shikoken, and it means supreme sword. So, so I worked with the translator to help me develop these terms that would be, so authentic, like real Japanese, but that are still kind of manageable to a Western reader.
So you're working with a translator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you find a translator to help you with your book in this sense? Because it's not I wouldn't think it's a typical request. They come and work with an author and kind of be their sounding board.
I got super lucky. So I'm a personal trainer. One of my clients went to Japan, met a girl, ended up marrying her, but and she's French born, but she speaks English, French, and Japanese. She lived in Japan for the last 10, 12 years. So I was like, hey, can you introduce me to your friend? I have a project for her, and so I paid her. And it worked.
That's amazing. The power of your network there. That's really good. Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
You never know who's in a position to help you. You never know what skills or talents people in your circle might have.
It's a good lesson for authors to lean on too. Is to reach out to your community. You never know, there may be somebody who can really help you.
Exactly. Like I said, like nothing happens in isolation. Like this book didn't get made just by me. There were other people who were a huge influence on that.
How do you create a world that nobody has seen before and bring them into the story? You have a point of reference from your dream, but as a reader, we don't have that point of reference. So how do you create this world for us as readers?
That's a great question. So I try to include some things that are very real and familiar, even if it's a new fantasy world. there are things that we still like. I think if you were to say picture like a Japanese farming village, you probably have an idea of what it looks like, right? You may not understand everything you see, but we can mostly form that mental image, what the rooftops look like, that there might be like rice paddies and stuff surrounding the village. And so
Yeah.
I include those elements. I include some things that are as realistic as possible, and then I kind of sprinkle in like the fancy sprinkles, and there's something called flow of information, just the pace at which you render new information. The more obscure or like fantastical the elements, the more sparing you want to be with it. So if you're introducing like an entirely new, let's say like fantasy race and village, you want to do that kind of slowly versus if you're just introducing like a couple characters who are human and they're in a relatively normal setting that we've seen before, you can throw that in with a little bit more density of information. So,
Okay.
and that's just another like writing skill that you acquire by practice, knowing when to feed in new information for the reader, when to pull back and consolidate what you've already introduced.
So there's a real push and pull with your reader, right? Sometimes you're going to push them in the story, sometimes you're going to pull back a little bit, give them some space, so that the reader can stay in step with you, right?
Just let them marinate a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What is different about you in the process of writing the book? Like, because this is much different than that first attempt that you did. This one has a little bit more to it for you. How are you different in the process of writing?
10 years older, so seeing a little bit more of the world. And like I said, I did a ton of like self-fueled writing research. I based, University of Google. I Googled everything from how to write action scenes, how to, what is a character arc, explain plot structure, all this stuff about writing that I researched. And I just took my time with it. I'm more patient as an adult than I was as a kid. And I think I just had a clearer vision,
Nice.
for the story and the experience I wanted the reader to get.
This isn't the only book you're going to write, right? You're going to keep writing because seems like the cursor's still blinking on the screen. Like there's still more to write here.
Yeah. So it's because I wrote a book between ShadowBane, which is my current release, and that first one. I had a book called Sundering, and that one, I'll call that one a drawer manuscript because I will come back to that. But that was a different project and a very long, ambitious project that I'll circle back around to. That was another, like, almost good, but not quite. There's still some elements missing. So ShadowBane's actually my third book, and this will be a trilogy. And then I'm also working on a prequel novella for this. So there's that, and I got a few other ideas marinating in my brain right now. So
How does authorship fit into your day-to-day life, your relationships, your family, your community, job? How is all this working together?
Very chaotically. So in my day-to-day, I'm a personal trainer, I mentioned, and a competitive powerlifter. So my day-to-day is very, very physical, very sweaty. I live in the gym. I'm almost always in, sweats or like, a tank top or training athletic clothing. And people are usually surprised to find out that I write and that I kind of have this like nerdy intellectual hobby that I eventually hope to turn into a full-time career. So for right now, it's not paying the bills or anything. So I have to prioritize, my fitness career and, my relationships and everything are still very important. So I fit right in where I can, and I work very hard at it, but I'm just not at the point where I can, quit my job and sit home and write for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I have a lot of authors on the show that are in a similar spot. They would love to do this full time and this be their main source of income, but they're just balancing the both. Do you see a beauty in writing when you have time? Is that something that you enjoy in the moment? I know you'd like to write full time, but are you finding joy in those moments of writing? Does it do something for you personally?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it does feel draining. Sometimes I have 20 minutes, right? And, between clients, I'm like, okay, I have 20 minutes. If I don't use this time to write, I'm not going to write today. So I have to do it. Yeah. And that just, I think the positive to take from that is it does help with my discipline. I don't sit around and wait for the muse. I write when I have time because it's the only time I have. Other times it does feel like a nice break. If I can help it, my Friday ritual is I come home from work. I get home usually at work about 7 to 7. I get home a little earlier on Tuesdays and Fridays. So Fridays I get home about 3 o'clock. I make myself some lunch. I spend about an hour decompressing, hanging out with my dog, and then I pull out the computer and I'll write for 5-6 hours straight. And that's my big, like, oh, this might be nice to do on a regular basis. This is a glimpse into what it might be like to write full time. Putting in those big chunks of writing sessions, daily instead of weekly. So that feels like a nice break.
You mentioned before we jumped on today that there's an audiobook coming in the future. What do you envision when you hand this off to somebody to record it for you? What are you hoping the audiobook turns into for you and for the listeners?
Somewhat of a, say, theatrical experience, particularly with this. The ShadowBane has two main characters, and it's written in an alternating POV. So you get a chapter from Shura, the female main character, and then a chapter from Jin, her twin brother, the male character. So I hired two narrators, a male and a female, and they each read, their own chapters, but also then their character's dialogue in the other person's chapters. So it feels like an actual back and forth conversation between, the two characters when you're getting the dialogue fed to you. So I just wanted it to be a very immersive, intense experience. And, I know some people like to record their audiobooks themselves. In my case, I wanted to pay for professional narrators, professional voice actors who could just really bring this experience to life. It's one thing to read the written words. It's another thing to hear it. So ultimately, it's another medium similar to, a TV show and a book, or a video game and a TV show, right? The reader, the person experiencing it is always going to get a different experience out of it.
Do you listen to audiobooks yourself as well?
Not particularly. I think I find myself getting easily distracted, and as a writer, I actually like to kind of chew on the prose. I'll read or reread sentences and paragraphs that I really enjoy a few times, try to get a feel for what makes it sound good. So I like to see stuff written because I think it translates a little better to me, building and honing and appreciating my craft.
It's good. Yeah. It's interesting that audiobooks do exist, and I think for people on the go, or people doing things they don't have the time to pull the paper book out. I talked to you before we hit start that I like to have the book and the audiobook. I just love the two together. It's that immersive part to it it really brings me in, helps me pay attention, and I can kind of see where we're going as well. I had an author on this week, and he's a screenwriter. He said, go grab one of your movies you love, go search up the screenplay, the script, and pull up the script and watch the movie and do the cross-reference of the two, because you're going to see what they should be saying and what they did say. He said it's really an interesting exercise because it'll teach you what it's like from a movie perspective based on the script, the original script. I'm like, that seems interesting to me. I haven't done it yet, but I'm curious to try that as well.
So I've done this, and it's awesome. It's a really cool experience. Yeah.
Okay.
I wrote a bad screenplay for fun at one point because I was I was taking a break and doing some soul searching on what I wanted out of this. I had an agent. He left the industry. I had a big mess of a manuscript in my hands, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So I took some time off and wrote a screenplay for fun, and was looking up those writing tips and advice. And that was a thing I ended up doing, actually. And not only is it fun, but I actually think it's really useful. Writing that screenplay and reading about how they're written helped me nail my character introductions, because the way that they describe characters in a screenplay is really, really smart. It's very efficient.
Interesting. Do you think you'll ever turn some of your writings into a screenplay going forward?
Unlikely, but I won't say no. I think I like words. I like a lot of them. And so I do better when I can have, 600 pages. Screenplays are really, really lean and mean. And that's the talent that makes a good screenwriter is that they're able just to crimp everything down to the absolute most essential pieces. And that's what a lot of writing advice is actually based on. Like show, don't tell comes from screenwriting. And it's still good advice for novels, but there's some nuance there. And their character description or character introduction advice, basically, you see in novels all the time where it's like, oh, they're 6 feet tall and they have, brown hair and blue eyes. And they're wearing this leather jacket and blue pants and they're carrying this and that. And their nose is straight. And it's just kind of a list of traits. And then a screenwriter will be like, oh, like he's wearing a leather jacket, like the kind you might lend to a girlfriend. By the looks of, like, by the way he stood, you could tell he had plenty of them. It's like they kind of give the vibe, not like what he looks like. And it's such an interesting way to describe people because it gives insight. It gives insight into like their characters and like their energy and it's just a really like clean, efficient way to describe characters. And that's always stuck with me.
If we could move a little short commercial for the book, Cal, for somebody listening, and they're like, what's this book about? They pull it off the shelf at the store and they're like, I don't know. what would you say to them in that moment? They're holding your book in their hands. They're making a buy-in decision, the right book for them. If the book could speak, what would the book tell a reader off the shelf?
It's a dark, brutal story that is action-packed, but at its core is about two siblings who love each other and who are being pulled apart by the terrible decisions they're forced to make in a unforgiving and inhospitable world.
There you go. That's enough to pull people in, I would think, right?
I hope so. It's good. It's a dark and brutal story, but I think there's a lot for people there. There's a lot to appreciate about it if you dig into it.
Any character you resonate really closely with out of the ones in your book?
Definitely both main characters. There's kind of that, write what you know element. And so there are aspects of their personality that I share. I just might have to turn them up to like 11 in some cases. But, for example, the main character, Shura, she, as a woman in a feudal society, she's constantly like overlooked and underestimated, and she kind of has to fight for her place. Now, I've never experienced that directly, but I was bullied growing up. Like I was overlooked and underestimated a lot, so I can kind of tap into that part of my experience while, while writing her. And she's very like driven, very ambitious. It's like I consider myself that way too. She's just almost toxically so. And then their counterpart Jin, he's kind of a sinister, like violent guy. And I did combat sports. I compete in strength sports. I do have an aggressive side to me, and same thing where I can kind of tap into that when I'm writing him. So there's elements of both these characters that resonate with me. Nice.
That's good. Well, yeah, it kind of humanizes them, so we have a sense of who they are too as characters, and we can identify with them as readers. I like that. It's good. So take us to the website, Cal, and kind of where we can connect with you more and learn more about the books. I'm excited to know there's more coming down the road, because when readers find an author they love, they're like, oh, we want more. So yeah, take us to the website.
So you can find me at callogan.com. I'm also very active on Twitter or X now, and Instagram. I think we can post my social links with this, right? So they can know where to find me. But yeah, I'd love to connect, say hello. I'm on there pretty frequently and fairly active, and you can get a feel for what I'm reading and throw out some, fun behind the scenes tidbits. And I think, those are three main things I'm on. And of course, if you read ShadowBane and really fall in love with it, you can always follow me on Amazon and Goodreads. I write slowly, but I complete stuff. I promise not to Patrick Rothfuss or George R. R. Martin anybody. I will get these other books out. The second one will be out in 2026, and the third one is about 50% drafted. So, there you go. Yeah, they're cooking.
Anywhere where you can see this dog that helped inspire writing the story? Is that like on your socials or anything?
Yeah, I post them on Instagram a little bit, and then actually,
is he here?
Yeah, he's in the room with me. Give me one second.
All right.
Here we go.
Oh, come on. Oh, look at that face.
Yeah, this is Rizzo.
Hey, Rizzo.
So yeah, he's not good with screens. He kind of doesn't realize that there's like stuff here, but there we go.
There you go. He's on camera. He's cool.
He's a mini dachshund, so he's kind of football sized, easy to carry around.
He's very intimidating.
He sounds intimidating. He's got some lungs on him.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the dog to help inspire the writing. I like that. Excellent. It's great to meet you, Rizzo. It's awesome. Cal, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for being on the podcast. We'll send everybody your way through your links and everything. I'd love to have you come back in the future. Keep us in mind and new projects come up. I know the listeners love reconnecting with our guests, following your journey and seeing what's next.
Yeah, I would love to come back. This is great. So thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Excellent, everybody. All the information is always in the show notes. Go check out Cal's website. ShadowBane is the book. It's amazing. It's really good. You got to go check it out. All of the links, social links, everything's there as well. Cal Logan, everybody. Thank you, Cal. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.